So this next story is coming from the Steel City, and a man stabbed to death his victim by plunging a knife into his heart and lungs whilst protecting his cannabis grow has been jailed for life. Ross Turton turned to growing the cannabis at a property in Sheffield, and it was close to being mature enough for cultivation when the 30-year-old's farm came to the attention of Danny Irons. Turton had installed security cameras at the house and had alerts sent to his mobile phone each time any motion was detected. Mr. Irons, who had previously stolen cannabis from another cultivation nearby, triggered an alert from the camera system on the evening of April the 16th as Turton spent time with his cousin at a house in another area. Doncaster Crown Court heard that Turton armed himself with a knife and went to confront whoever had set off the alert and came across Mr. Irons in a park where he stabbed him. The knife, which has never been recovered by police, left an 18cm wound and entered through Mr. Irons' armpit. It penetrated his lung and heart before reaching the other lung and left him with what Judge Roger Thomas QC described as catastrophic and fatal injuries. Turton ran off from the scene and did everything he could to avoid detection, including getting rid of his mobile phone, clothing, and the murder weapon. He was caught by traffic officers days later and arrested before being questioned by detectives over the murder. Judge Thomas commended the work carried out by South Yorkshire police officers who put together a compelling case with overwhelming evidence despite Turton's best efforts to conceal the truth. The court heard Turton was not the typical defendant to appear before the judge, as John Elvidge QC defending him put forward a mitigation. He said Turton became a delivery driver for a cake shop during the pandemic. He added money was hard to come by and he accepted the opportunity to become involved in this cannabis grow which featured so much in the trial. He is anything but a typical defendant in the Crown Court. It is an example, this case, of what can happen if somebody is involved in a confrontation when they have access to a blade. So Turton was convicted of Mr. Irons' murder following a trial last month and was today sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 25 years. His co-defendant, Danny Chadwick, was found not guilty of murder or manslaughter. So just going into this further, the court heard that the defendants had gone out to check on that cannabis crop because they feared it was going to be burgled, and they came across Danny Irons and his mate, Peter Taylor. The prosecution said Turton stabbed Mr. Irons before chasing Peter Taylor, and as Mr. Irons fled with a fatal wound, he was pursued by Mr. Chadwick until he collapsed on Freston Green. Mr. Chadwick later said he met Turton and told him he thought he had stabbed Danny Irons and he pulled a knife out of his pocket. Mr. Chadwick admitted they later discarded the knife in a canal. He claimed that Danny Irons had swiped at him with a knife before he stabbed him in self-defence. So Detective Chief Inspector Simon Palmer said, "Firstly, I would like to offer my condolences to Danny's family on this difficult day. Although justice has been served, this will do little to ease the grief of his loved ones and our thoughts are with them." A friend of Danny made the initial call to the police in the early hours of the Saturday morning after discovering him lying face down in the street. Both Danny and his friend had been approached by Turton in a small park. There, an altercation took place during which Danny was fatally stabbed. The court heard that Turton struck the fatal injury, with Danny collapsing nearby. Immediately after the stabbing, Turton fled the scene before disposing of his phone, clothing, and the vehicle he fled in. Turton now faces a considerable period of time behind bars for this serious crime, though again this will be a little consolation to Danny's family. Turton has refused to accept responsibility for his actions, and as such, Danny's family have had to sit through a distressing trial. So just want to say rest in peace, Danny Irons, and my condolences go out to your family. It's your boy GT. Keep it locked, keep it real.